Welcome to BS with Joe.
Hey, and I'm BS, and that's Joe.
Okay, so what are we talking about this time?
Well, this time I think it's class diversity and what was the other thing we're going to talk about with this show?
Cultural suppression.
Cultural suppression. That's it.
So starting with class diversity.
Yeah.
All right, so what I wanted to talk about with this one is the powers that be want to distract everybody from the different classes. They don't want to have that discussion. Because think about it. 90% of the elected officials that run our government are from what class?
The wealthy class.
Exactly. They all have Ivy League degrees,
Been to the finest schools.
Right.
Come from wealthy families like the Kennedys.
Yes. So they're promoting things like critical race theory and the DEI program that they promote racism. I know that's a very controversial thing to say.
Nobody likes to talk about racism.
No, I mean, I fully agree with Morgan Freeman where the best way to solve racism is to stop talking about it. But it's being pushed because that changes the discussion from class diversity to race diversity. Race diversity works in their favor because it divides us.
Right.
If we're talking about class disparity,
it divides us from their class, which is the wealthy class.
It unites us.
It unites us.
So,
yes.
And to give you an example of things in history that have, well, in recent history that have been good examples of the class disparity conversation getting stifled to an extreme degree.
Okay.
The last speech that Malcolm X gave was about class disparity.
Yes.
He was killed.
Yes.
The last speech that Martin Luther King gave was to the mountaintop.
Yes.
He did cover race in that one, but it was shifting the focus to class disparity.
Right. And that's where we have true disparity in our country. Look at North Carolina as a good example.
And West Virginia.
And West Virginia.
Yeah.
Well, even other areas. You could even go to parts of Los Angeles, parts of New York.
Right. And it's not really, I mean, it's not so much a race issue with the cities, like Chicago, for example.
Chicago used to separate it with redlining and stuff like that.
Yes, they did. So, and the way that the alderman districts in Chicago, I don't remember how many, there's like 2,000 districts in Chicago. But the way that they're set up is to suppress the people that don't, the have-nots are like, you're over here.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what race, color, or creed you are, if you're not the middle class or the upper class, you're not living in the Gold Coast.
No.
And it's not because you don't have the money. You're never going to have the money. And they're going to make sure you never have the money.
Yeah. So you're right. Unless you're that 1% like Elon Musk.
Right.
And
I mean, I'm not saying that in America they don't have opportunity.
Right.
But as you move up, that you got to shatter some glass ceilings.
Yes. Well, not only that, but like we were saying, whenever they're classifying everything with race instead of class disparity,
right.
They're able to put that division in between the class system, so that way you can't get through those glass ceilings.
Right. And I think last time we were here, we talked about what a salary in 1975 was versus today.
Right, with the Glass-Steagall Act and things like that, we were talking about different salaries and incomes.
So like my dad, I don't know exactly what, like I said before, I don't know exactly what his salary was, but I think it was somewhere around $50,000.
Yeah.
And in the 1970s, that was good money.
That's really good money.
Mom didn't have to work. He worked for the power company. He had great benefits, made decent money. The company, 5 kids. Didn't really, no, they weren't wealthy, but they didn't need for anything.
Yeah.
There was always food on the table.
There was always food on the table.
Nowadays, a family of 7 at $50,000 a year,
Oh yeah, you're not getting anywhere.
No.
And that's another thing when I want to talk about with this class diversity and
Cultural suppression.
They're even separating the families. They're bringing the fathers out of the families, and that makes it even harder, with trying to get through these glass ceilings.
Yeah.
And
I just, it's a really bad thing that it's happening, but it's become almost a joke or a meme. I've even seen it in memes that, single women are, they're, once you go black, you got a kid.
Yeah.
It used to be.
And I've seen videos on X, because I get a lot of information from X. I've seen videos on X where women are encouraged to have multiple kids to get more money out of either the fathers or the state.
That's been going on for years.
Yeah, and
the system encourages it because they get exponentially more money each kid they have.
Yeah, and that's where I think if they need to the government needs to incentivize, I believe, on trying to keep the families together.
How do you do it? Tax incentives?
Tax incentives. I believe that's a good one. Like, if the family's together, cohesiveness, no taxes.
Well, I wouldn't say
that would grow a family.
It would, but right now, what do you think? Get like $2,500 a person?
Yeah.
So if it's a cohesive family unit with both parents in place, double it.
Double it. That's it. Not only that, but they could also do other things. Like, I was talking to a coworker. There was about population decline, how our population is declining rapidly, and it's because people aren't having kids. Well, it's hard to have kids when you can't afford a house.
Right. People aren't getting married until their 30s because they can't afford to live.
And that's the biggest class disparity that I could think of. A wealthy person can easily have multiple kids. Look at Elon Musk; he's got like 10 kids.
Yeah.
With several different women.
His personal life stays pretty much out of the spotlight, but
yeah. Well, I like diving into that kind of stuff because I kind of like am interested in how a guy could be like Elon Musk. He's my hero.
It's interesting, but at the same time, I respect his privacy.
Yeah, I do too. It's not like I'm looking into it. It's just I see certain things. And, he truly wants to be a father figure. And it's hard for a working man to be a father figure when you're working 50, 60 hours a week. How can you be there for your kids?
Right.
And I was listening to a Joe Rogan podcast. It was with the sheriff of Baghdad. Mm-hmm. And he was talking about how he had a rough lifestyle, how his family did... Pardon for the dog.
Yet another country you heard from.
Yeah. So, son of Baghdad, or not son of Baghdad, sheriff of Baghdad. He was a special forces individual, and Joe Rogan and him were talking about how he grew up. He grew up in a abusive home. His father abused him when they got drunk, and him and his brother. And he said that individuals who become special forces like that came from homes like that. Either they don't have any father figures or they've been abused. And I think it's because it hardens them. And he was stating how in this podcast, how he knew there was a beating coming. You just had to prepare for it and suck it up.
Well, I happen to know from first-hand experience that in the United States military, mm-hmm. in order to be special forces, you have to pass psychological examinations.
Yeah, but if you watch this guy, he's got a couple of screws loose, and I think maybe he was like incentivized with those screws to do what he did.
Okay,
because I think in order to do certain things at certain special forces, because he wasn't a part of a group. He did things on his own. That's how kind of a bad guy he is. And he wasn't a bad guy. He was a good guy for us.
Right.
But everybody else feared him. That's why he was called the Sheriff of Baghdad.
Gotcha. CIA operative.
I believe he has some of that.
Yeah.
You know, if you're working on your own when you're in special forces, you're probably CIA operative.
Well, special forces is automatically pretty much that.
Yeah. But yeah, he was telling how, you know, that's a product of class division. You know.
Yeah.
And another thing is also language. So like, you know, you go to somebody, you know, like when kids have like me personally, I came from New Mexico, and a lot of people said ain't, and that's not really a word, but I use it a lot. I'm trying not to use it because it does sound like you're uneducated.
It's all in the South too.
Yeah. Well, you listen to people who are from the Appalachians.
No. Yeah.
They have a thick draw, and it's just the way they speak. That's part of their culture.
Yeah.
But that's also could be used for class disparity because West Virginia, that's where they probably speak very much like that. They go to somewhere in Virginia or college, they're going to sound uneducated, but it doesn't mean they're not educated.
True.
But that also could be the whole class thing, because if you go to a proper school, you're not going to have any of those language issues.
I was on the phone yesterday because I had to call my bank, so I'm on the phone with Navy Federal Credit Union, and the woman that I finally, after half an hour on the phone, I finally got to speak to somebody.
Yeah.
And she's got this southern drawl, and she was the nicest lady ever. But I just said to her, "Is that Texas I hear?" And she's like, "No, it's Alabama."
Alabama. Yeah.
I was like, "All right, I wasn't that far off."
No, and with speech, it's getting less diverse with YouTube videos, TV, radio, and back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, a lot of it was more localized. Mm-hmm. Your radio was localized, you know, your not so much TV, but now that a lot more of this stuff is not so much localized, you could listen to something from some other part of the States. It's going to very much sound very similar, and you won't get that Valley Girl.
That's true.
Valley Girl could be a whole class diversity. Right?
I mean, I think the Valley Girl goes along with the Surfer Dude.
Surfer Dude. But is there anything else you want to bring out with that?
Honestly, I mean, I think, like Morgan Freeman said,
just
stop talking about it.
Stop talking about it.
You know, as far as the race thing goes.
Race. Talk about class.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about anything, talk about class disparity.
Right.
And that's where, like, I think this whole flood thing with North Carolina and Tennessee has brought out that, because you're actually having wealthy individuals be able to donate money, and that's a good thing. I don't want to ever stop donations to anybody.
The wealthy parts that were affected by the hurricane have been serviced.
Yes.
Have been taken care of.
Yes.
The people that aren't wealthy are the ones that they're saying we can't get a helicopter in there.
Well, not only that, but I honestly think it's partially a land grab, because there's lithium deposits up in them hills that they're going to want. So how do you get those lithium deposits? Make it really easy and cheap. Say, we're not building roads to your community or power or any kind of infrastructure. So when you leave, we'll buy it from you at, you know, pennies on the dollar.
That could be.
But and you got to think about it. So I came from the oil field, so I know a little bit about mineral rights. If a property has been in a family for generations, that family has those mineral rights. Those mineral rights haven't been sold.
Now in West Virginia, it's not even just mineral rights, because I was in West Virginia one time and talking with people. They don't own their own trees.
No. Well, even water. So, like, you think about when water lands on your property, you think you have it? No, because the government, it's going to run off to someone else's property.
Right.
And that's the whole thing. Like, you know, and it trickles down all the way from Canada down to Mexico.
I have actually seen articles and conversations with people that had collected rainwater and gotten in big trouble for it.
Yes. And but as far as mineral, because that's in the ground, that doesn't move.
Right. Well, the trees don't move.
The trees don't move. You're right, and I don't understand that. How is it that they don't own the trees?
They don't own they don't have the rights to cut down their own trees.
Even though they could be a nuisance, and like, how do they get to their own property if a tree's in the way?
I don't know exactly how it works, but
They
I
probably
know
have to get permits.
I was having a discussion with a guy from West Virginia about, just look at all the money you've got sitting here. Just sell firewood.
Yeah.
They can't do it.
Well, not only that, but lumber, timber.
Yeah.
They could sell.
He owns the property, but he doesn't have the rights to the trees.
That sounds fishy.
Doesn't it?
What it could have been is like if someone years ago had a contract with somebody with the property that he's selling the rights to the trees.
I think it's just another way to suppress people.
Absolutely, it could be. There's many ways, and that's the thing is that's why I'm so against all this regulation.
Yeah.
There's a regulation for trees. There's a regulation for rainwater. There's a regulation for your mineral rights.
Right.
Now, there's
a regulation for the airspace over your house.
That's right. There was a guy that shot a drone.
Yeah.
And he's facing jail time.
Yeah.
It was a Walmart drone or Amazon drone?
I don't remember.
Yeah, it was one of those weird delivery.
I think it was Walmart.
Walmart. Yeah, it's kind of crazy that we've got drones. Think about 20 years ago, we would have never been talking about drones delivering products to your house.
That's true.
One more thing I wanted to talk about with as far as I lost it. We'll save it for another segment.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. But we'll end this here. So like, comment, subscribe, and share.
Yeah. On Rumble, we've actually started gaining a little traction. That's awesome. We've got 5 new subscribers last week.
That's great. And yeah, share the show and make a comment. That'll help us out.
Appreciate it. Okay.